Welcome to the first. So you're the first one to try this out. First one of our chats. I actually thought that it would be really nice to actually talk to some previous YDA winners. I think it is actually interesting to have you as one of the first ones because, as we were talking before we went, live, we actually thought about how incredible it was that you are a YDA winner with a film that is actually more than half an hour long, right? So before we actually get into that, I am so excited that you decided to do this. I'm so excited to actually be doing this because we're gonna try and see whether this works.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you're the first one to do
that. This one, no more.
Exactly. After this one, we're done. So you have a lot of weight on your shoulders. That said, let's talk about where you are. You're in Ireland right now. You're Irish. You are in lockdown, kind of.
Yeah. I'm in lockdown. I'm getting used to it. I'm writing again, so it's quite nice to have the time. I find. I'm getting the hang of this thing now. I think.
Do you think lockdown makes you more creative?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm kept busy now. In my head.
Yeah.
So it's great. Maybe I was going to the pub a bit too much. So it's I think it makes you a bit more focused.
Yeah. It's interesting because one thing that I've found out is that a lot of people say I have time, right? I have time to write. I have time to do things. I have the time to do the things that I thought that I would do, but I didn't have time to do, and now I have time to do it. It's interesting to me. It's like that. It might be a moment in time in which you actually might be more creative, right? You are a writer and a director, and you're also a producer. And so your writing is something that you can do in lockdown.
It's really great to have the time. I remember thinking before that wouldn't it be great if we could just pause time, and now here we are.
Yeah,
time pause.
But I'm just curious about this. Are you actually working on things that you wanted to work on before, or are you working on ideas
going around in my head and now I'm finally getting to it. And I think a lot of writers say that they spend 90% of their time thinking about an idea and maybe 10% of the time occasionally writing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's funny. It's interesting to me that it is a moment in which we can actually all do things. And the weird thing is that we as producers become more frustrated because production is kind of stopped, right? We are in Italy over here, and you are in Ireland over there, and you are probably a week or so behind us, maybe 10 days behind us. In opening up or maybe trying things out and it's weird because producers or production companies that don't produce are very frustrated right now, right? And
I can imagine, right? Yeah.
And opening up in this time period is going to be interesting because the question that you don't have to have an answer on this because I don't think anybody does, but do you think we're going to actually create things that are different? Do you think we have changed in what we will like after this lockdown? And how difficult is this question for you?
I hadn't thought of it before. Well, let me think. I don't know. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of different things coming out, like because of it. I think. Yeah, everything will probably be different, but I think also it might be a bit like even 9/11 or something. I remember talking to it was Sharon Bedell, the vice president of Tribeca, and she was saying that they still get all of these 9/11 shorts coming in now since it happened, and she said sometimes it can get a little tedious watching it because a lot of them can be quite samey, but then somebody comes up with something that just changes it a little bit or gives you a different take on it and makes you think. So So I think there's probably going to be a lot of similar things coming out.
Yeah, I think so too.
Exhausting, and then some things will just connect with people, you know, in the right way. I would imagine.
Yeah, I think also this is such an incredible moment in time where we're all living the same thing, that I think 10 years from now we will actually have films that will talk about this moment, kind of like when you have a film about the war or a film about a big event, right? You look back and have that moment in time in 2020 in which everybody was locked down for a while.
Yeah. I mean, it does feel like we're all in a movie or something.
It does. But that said, you actually did a film called Detainment, which was more than half hour long, and it won the YDA, and then it actually brought you a lot of success. Now, the success that it brought you afterwards, because you actually went
a lot of hate mail and death threats too, Kareem. But yeah, let's call it success.
Tell me about that first.
Which, I mean, the film got me in all sorts of trouble. Like it's based on such a sensitive case. It's the James Bulger case. So it's based on the interview transcripts of John Venables and Robert Thompson, the two 10-year-old boys that were were convicted of murdering 2-year-old James Bulger at the time. So the film is like almost entirely verbatim. It's entirely factual, but I think it's one of those cases that really divides public opinion in the UK, and I get where it comes from. Like people, I think when it happened, people couldn't really cope with the idea that two 10-year-old boys could do this, and the only way they could make sense of it was if they were evil. They said, well, they must be evil. And now that's become the popular opinion so much that anybody that says anything different, if you try to understand why they did it, if you give an alternate reason other than them being evil, you get criticized and attacked for it. So as a result now, it's just stifled debate on the whole issue, where people will only look at it from one perspective. And you know, I'd known it for a long time. I'd read David James Smith's book, which is incredible. It's called The Sleep of Reason. And he became a huge supporter of the film, which was great. And a lot of people connected to the case, you know, came out and stood up for the film. And they said that it was important to, you know, not to just dismiss children as being evil, because when you do that, it's quite likely that it could happen again. If you don't understand it, the only way you can prevent something like that from happening is if we understand it. So it created this big debate, you know, about the circumstances which led to the crime being committed. But there was also this much wider debate about, you know, do we have the right to tell true stories, and what stories should be told and which stories shouldn't be told. So it got interesting. You know, there was 250,000 people signed a petition to have the film banned and removed from the Oscars. Wow. It was like 200,000 by the end of it. In the UK. So
don't just throw the Oscar thing just out there like that. So because the film actually went to get nominated the following year as as the short film.
That's right.
Film category, right?
Yeah, it was nominated for an Oscar. In 2019. So and that's really what kind of started the whole. People started hearing about the film, but they started hearing about it sooner than I would have liked them to hear about it, because I think my plan would have been to get a UK broadcaster for the film and for people to see the film and then talk about it. But what was happening was the opposite. People were talking about the film, having seen it. So they were assuming the worst, and I understand it actually, because if I had heard of somebody else making a film about this case, I would probably immediately assume that it's going to be made in supremely bad taste. It's just so sensitive, that case.
Which brings me to a question that it has to do with crafting. I remember that the YDA, when they showed it as the winner, they showed the whole thing, which I think I would tip my hat to that, because it's actually amazing thing. I was sitting in the crowd, and we actually watched. Everybody watched 32, 4, 5 minutes of it, and everybody was in silent mode. Nobody complained like you would in a festival like Cannes, where you're waiting for 30 seconds.
I was expecting them to just show the trailer, and because for everything else, and they actually made an announcement at the beginning to say, anything over 5 minutes, I think they were going to show a trailer for.
Yep.
So I was completely expecting the trailer to come on, and then Francois decided to show the whole film, and I'm so grateful to him for it, because
which I think is amazing, because the trailer would not have given it justice, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, my plan, was I first of all, I didn't think it was going to win. I didn't think it was the right thing for that festival.
Yep.
But I was planning to go there and try and get people's email addresses and then beg them to watch my film and keep pestering them in the weeks that followed, like saying, "Well, have you watched it yet? Have you watched it yet?" And then there was no need for any of that, because everybody had just seen it. So it really made such a huge difference. It was great.
Before we talk about what happened afterwards, I have a question about the crafting of it. I mean, the kids were amazing.
Eli and Leon, yeah, they are.
Because there's something about the film that is actually there's a cinematic feel to it. You have a very clear idea that it is. You use the word verbatim. You have a very clear idea that what is you're hearing is actually what was said, right?
Yeah.
How difficult was it to put it together from a visual / actor's perspective? Because the actors are amazing.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of time to work on it, and I used to work in casting, and I work as an agent for child actors, so it was great practice. I think, like, in terms of directing, because you can kind of, like, because I get to do lots and lots of auditions every year.
Yep.
You can try things out, and this is what I've been doing for the last 14 years.
Yes.
Audition, and if something doesn't work, you just toss it away and then try something else. But it's a great way of learning, effective ways to direct actors and children specifically. So with this one, the way we sort of approached it is the same way I would approach anything, actually, that I was casting. Like, we got all the boys to prepare one scene.
Yep.
And then we would start improvising with them immediately afterwards. So for the John scenes, by the end of it, we'd say something like, well, I think you're lying. I think you're lying, and I think Robert's telling the truth. I think you're the liar.
Wow.
And we just see what they'd say and what they would do, because a lot of the time you'll find that kids come in and they're very well prepared with their drama school teacher, or their parents have rehearsed the scene 20 times. And whatever you say to them, you're going to get a similar delivery. So just
their lines, so they're repeating what they know already. But you were trying to find that was.
And I understand, but I get it, because I've done it myself. As a kid, I used to do drama classes and auditions, and when you get something stuck in your head one way, kind of think, no, I'm right. I know.
I know this already. I'm going to say it the way I know it. Yeah.
So basically, I kept finding this with auditions when I audition kids. So then I quickly decided, right, we need to get them off the script and get them to do something else. So we started improvising, and I had an actor in the room, and I told the actor when he's improvising with the boys, don't do it like the detectives would normally do it, because they're quite gentle when they question the boys. I said, just kind of, lose the rag with them a bit and scare the living daylights out of them. And I said, let's see what happens.
See it. I mean, oh my God, it's amazing what came out of it, because
they kind of responded differently. Like, some of them would, like, if you shouted at a boy, he might want to shout back at you.
Yeah.
And then you think, well, maybe they're more of a Robert.
Yeah.
But with Eli, it was the opposite. He was just, like, so in touch with his emotions.
Yeah.
That you shout at him and he kind of feels the shudder.
Yeah.
and by the end of it, he had tears in his eyes, and
Amazing.
amazing. So it's also, I think, you need to find a boy who is just very in touch with his emotions, like Eli, and have that ability. But also, I think you need to push kids, and this is why you don't get performances like this from kids all the time, because people feel like you shouldn't push kids. But I think if you don't push them, you'll never let them
get that performance
like that.
Yeah. Because it's weird to me, because there's the thing that I find incredible is that they stay in character, right? It's like,
yeah.
However you were directing them behind the scenes, you would expect that if you are getting off script, or you're having, your actors that they're dealing with improvised, you would actually expect them to actually go, kind of like feel that they need to look into camera or get out of their character, but they stay in character like big name actors do, right? It's crazy,
Well, the way we did for the shoot, we would kind of do it as long takes. So we would loop the scene, like as soon as we get to the end,
you would start again.
Eli might have the beginning of tears, but we start the scene like that, and then when you end the next time, it gets bigger and bigger every time. So we just loop it back every time, and then he start off with more tears, and over then bigger. So by the end of it, he was hysterical, the poor kid, he's tears streaming down his face. I think it was like nearly 20 minutes that take, and it was just back and forth, and it was hard work.
Very hard work, yeah. It's hard work for an adult actor. I can't even imagine for a kid. It's crazy. So you do the film, and then you send it to YDA thinking that this is an advertising award. Who the fuck is gonna sit through 35 minutes, right?
Yeah, kind of. But I saw that there was a category for like longer shorts, like for 30 to 60 minutes. I was like, all right, let's try this out.
We'll send it here. And then which is actually incredible about the YDA, it has always kind of changed and started categories that were kind of relevant to the time period, right?
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, you see your whole film scene, and people stand up, standing ovation, and people are crying, when the lights come on and all that. So, which is kind of what happened. And then, what happened after the YDA win? So you win the YDA special, jury prize, and then did it help?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it was one of the first festivals that screened it. There was Krakow just before that, and it won an award at Krakow. But then at the YDA, I think it definitely felt different, because it wasn't just an award that looks nice on the mantelpiece. I really kind of started to feel doors opening, and people were immediately, getting in touch with me and sending. I'd like 30, 40 emails every day from people who had seen the film or wanted to see the film if they weren't there, or they'd heard about it. They were all asking me in for interviews, and everybody wanted to work with me, and I was like, wow. I was like, this is amazing. So it was very different to just a regular film festival in that sense, and I've been to so many film festivals since, and there's still been nothing like it. At other festivals, you win and it's another award on the mantelpiece. And that's pretty much it. Sometimes some cash, but with the YDA, it was amazing. I mean, the connections I actually got from it were really great, and all people working in the industry that I otherwise just wouldn't have been able to get in touch with.
Yeah. Because the weird thing about the YDA, you're the director, writer, producer side, right? And I'm the producer side. Like I've gone to the YDA and I've seen the winners, and I've followed the winners for years now, right? And I'm fortunate and humbled enough to actually be the chairman of the jury this year, and on a very weird year. But it is very interesting because it is the moment in which producers actually poach directors, right? There are very few festivals in which you can actually see it all like agglomerate into that moment, because if you actually play it right and you send the right film from one moment to another, you will see that the world, because it's 23 years old, right? So the world actually kind of, you might get a call from Italy, and then you get a call from Sweden, and then you get
Yeah,
it's true, right? It happened.
I mean, amazing. Yeah, it really is like an amazing gateway, I think, into that industry, like especially for commercials.
We do it. I mean, it is true. I mean, we find directors there, and a lot of production companies, even production companies that don't have exclusivity deals or don't want to sign an exclusivity deal with you, know about you, because then you become part of a new genre of directors that have gone into the mix, right? So,
yeah.
So now, weirdly, I'm going to ask you a weird question. Did it bring you work, or did it bring you a lot of?
The irony is that I'm not working in commercials now, but at the time it definitely really did feel like, a change. And I met with lots of commercial companies and kept meaning to get back to it. But then I got, like so busy with other film festivals. Yeah. And I was planning to, I'm still planning to come back to it. And now that I've got time to think about it, it's good.
Yeah.
So, my plan is to get a commercial on my reel. I'd love to do something charity-based or a cause-based commercial or something like that to start with.
Also, like actors, like storytelling with actors and stuff like that, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, like something performance-based would be great. I'd love something that gives, something challenging for an actor is always great. But, ideally, something that has a resonance to it.
Yeah.
Well, so I do plan on coming back to commercials. It's not easy. I think even after winning the YDA, I have to say it's nothing is really easy. It's not an easy industry to do. If it was, everybody would be doing it.
No, it's true, and it's not easy. And telling a story in a short form is not easy, and all that. And the business has changed.
That's why it's easy. It's hard to get a break. That's what I mean.
That's so funny. That's true. It's true. It's hard to get a break. And I think that it's interesting to me. Like, for example, my my biggest fight with Francois, not together, but together, like our biggest challenge this year, like the fight together, was to have the YDA happen this year also, right?
All right, great. I'm delighted it's going ahead. Like
leaving a hole in this year would actually not be a good idea, right? Because directors did work throughout the year, and directors have work that they can show, and it's a crafting and a director and a talent-based contest. So it actually is interesting to actually keep it up. So I am very happy that we're actually doing it this year.
Yeah, I think it's great that it's going ahead. A lot of festivals have just canceled this year.
I think it is sad. One thing that we will not be able to give people, and we're trying to figure out a way to actually do it, is the winners from 2020 will not walk up on a stage.
Right, yeah.
And not walking up on a stage, I think, is something that we as organizers and participating in the organization of it need to kind of be conscious of, because the winners actually walk on stage sometimes for the first time, right? Sometimes
yeah.
And that is something that I think will have to not be missed as much as it should be, right? So, which is not a question.
Yeah.
To you, it's
I don't know how you're going to do that,
no.
Unless it's something at a later date or something.
Yeah, we might do something like that, but I think we need to give people the consciousness that it's moving forward for the right reasons. It's moving forward because I think there's a lot of directors that are going to come out this year, and there's going to be a hole from 2020 if we don't do it, right? But that said, have you always wanted to be a director? How do you like that? How do you like the fact that
I really have. Yeah, pretty much for as long as I can remember. Like you know, as a kid, I did drama classes, but it actually wasn't really to act.
Yes.
I mean, even before I did that, I'd be making these terrible films and casting my parents in roles. God bless them, and they did it, you know, because they had to. And we'd go on holidays with my dad's Super 8mm camera. I made a film about the famine, and they were famine victims. Like, it was on Ackle Island when I was very young, and then and you know, I mean, I thought I was making a masterpiece, like editing the thing in camera and stuff. It was going to be terrible, but they did it anyway. So then I went to.
But do you come from a creative family? Do you come from like?
Not really. No, I've two sisters who are teachers, like they're public school teachers, and then my brother is completely technical. He's like a computer programmer.
Yep.
So no, I'm kind of the only one I think who's creative in that way. I mean, my sisters might have an issue with this actually. Hopefully they won't see this.
We'll cut this part.
But yeah, no, I think it was always there. I always wanted to direct, and I started making these films then with kids in my drama class.
Yeah.
Then there was a festival here called the Fresh Film Festival.
Yes.
For young people, which is really brilliant. You know, any teenagers, kids should definitely enter it. And I was on the jury before, so I do workshops with them now, and I think it's great. I think
great.
And so I won an award at that when I was a teenager, and that was pretty encouraging.
Yep.
So then I went to film school, and then I graduated from film school, and then you realize how utterly difficult it is.
Oh yeah.
To get someone to pay you to direct.
Very difficult.
What do I do now? So then I was producing for a while music videos.
Yep.
With Sony Music, Universal Music. I worked in live TV for a little while.
You were in Dublin?
In Dublin, yeah. But I always wanted to get back to directing. So I was also working in casting, and I worked as an agent. And I guess without really knowing it, then it was good practice. I learned how to direct by doing that, just by doing auditions, because I would have gone insane otherwise.
Exactly.
So it still kind of felt like I was directing, because it's directing, you're just not making it.
Yeah, it is.
So it was,
and it really teaches you a lot. I mean, that is actually an incredibly great learning ground. Right?
It was great. It taught me how bad a director I was, and then I realized, right, I won't do that again. So it was nice to have that, kind of training ground to do it, And the great thing with, most of the auditions I was doing were with children.
Yeah.
They don't really judge you too much. If something stupid, like, they don't know you're giving them terrible correction. So you can just move on and say, right, let's not do that again. So, but I think after kind of doing that, I eventually kind of figured out, what worked and what didn't work. And I'd always try something different in an audition.
And then cut to the Oscars. And then then at a certain point you find yourself at the Oscars.
Yeah. So that was something like, since I was a kid, I've been telling people someday I'm gonna be there. Like, I've been telling my parents since I was about 10 that someday I'm gonna be at the Oscars and I'm gonna be there, and nobody ever believes you, and it also, for me, it just felt so far away that I was kind of, you nearly give up on it.
Yeah.
It was this childhood dream that I always had of getting to the Oscars. So then, when it finally happened, like it honestly took my breath away. I was kind of like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
It was really hard to believe. The whole thing was pretty surreal. But at every step there was always something else to cancel it out, because the tabloids were like running a story.
Oscar, you know, you're like, I'm at the Oscars.
Yeah, pick up the Mirror or the Daily Mail or something, and it's saying what a horrible film I've made, and how it reenacts the torture and murder inflicted on James Bulger, and it doesn't do any of those things. Like it doesn't reenact the murder, or
Yeah.
people were reading this and they were believing it, and they were outraged by it, you know, and I understand why they would be. I would be too if I was reading that.
Yeah.
So in one way, you know, it was like trying to combat all of this. That started this petition that 250,000 people signed. They wanted to have the film removed. I started getting death threats like on a daily basis, hate mail, people saying they wanted to gouge my eyes out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I left it all online because I think it says something, you know. But anyway, so all of that was happening at the same time, and I didn't really get to really take it all in. I think it was only months after the Oscars had happened, I thought back and I was like, oh my God, that really happened.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like, you know, there's a famous author that says that you pass through life with a blindfold on your eyes, and only later you're allowed to take the blindfold off and look back at what you went through, because that's the moment where you actually can judge it. Because while you're living it, you're not being able to, you can't really judge it because you're not seeing it, right? You're gonna, right?
Yeah, I think that's very much what it was like. Yeah, it didn't feel real at the time, you know, but none of it did.
Yeah.
Even reading about myself,
like you,
the tabloids, you know, that didn't feel real either. So it was, it was all just a hectic sort of experience, you know.
Speaking of this, what kind of, I mean, what is your goal? Feature films?
Well, yeah, I've always wanted to make feature films. So I've signed with an agency. I'm with Paradigm in LA at the moment, and I've got a brilliant manager, Spencer.
Yep.
So it's great. You know, it feels like I've got a really good team working with me now, and the goal is feature films. You know, I've been pitching on lots of projects. There's one really great script that I'm attached to, but the funding isn't all there. It's a drama, and it can be hard to get drama made in LA.
Yep.
Everybody wants to make horror now because it does well at the box office, and I get that as well. So I'm trying to see, can I adapt and give them a bit of what they want and also put a bit of what I want in there, and still make something which is really, really good and interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think if I had a choice, I would love to just make true stories, though, or important.
I was gonna ask you that if you were to, you would actually do kind of an extension, like an extension of what Detainment was as a.
I have no plan to make Detainment into a feature.
Sequel, I'm saying.
We'll leave that one for the time.
I can see that it has like left a wound,
A lot of people ask me, am I planning to make a feature film of Detainment? And I'm like, I don't think I could
ever talk about Detainment ever again.
It was a battle, and it's still kind of a battle because a lot of people have formed an opinion about the film, and they tell me they're never going to watch it.
Yeah.
And I always wonder, what their opinion would be if they had just seen the film and heard nothing about it.
Yeah.
That maybe it would.
That's a lot about the world we live in, right? We kind of give opinions on things we don't know about, right? Like, we have.
Yeah, people think they know, and I get it.
We have people, especially when it comes to the way we tell stories in film. There are so many choices you have to make, and there are so many ways you can tell a story, and if you find the right story, you can tell the true story, right? It's like I think
Yeah.
You don't have to, because that story actually divides very quickly, right? You know that it's a true story, and it divides you immediately because you're talking about children, and you can't really think of children being like that, right?
Yeah. I think people don't want to. They like to keep it simple. People kind of like to think of them as being evil.
Yeah.
And like Detainment, like people ask me all the time, why did I make it from the boys' side? And it's not meant to be from their side either. I started seeing that as a tragedy, not just for one family, but for three families.
Absolutely.
And I still have enormous sympathy for the Bolger family, and always will. But I also felt something for the families of the killers.
Yeah.
And there's this idea, that people say that it's wrong to acknowledge the pain of the killers' families. And I think that's just a very archaic way of looking at things. I think you can feel two things, but if you ask someone to people are so used to just feeling one way about something, they'll only feel one thing about that case. And when you ask them to feel two things at the same time, it gets you in trouble, as you've seen.
True. No, true. It's true. And you weren't probably expecting it, but the choices that you made in telling the story as realistic as possible and as verbatim as possible. I think verbatim is a good word.
Yeah, it's almost entirely verbatim. There's one or two little lines we tweaked, but only to make it more coherent. And then there's one or two scenes that happened outside the interview rooms, like John's confession, for example. But it's still based on records, and it's as close to the truth as we could get it. So we called Detainment a true story as opposed to being based on a true story.
Yeah. So, which is actually really good. I think I would probably end on this, but I would actually end on this by saying that you and I did not know each other until now, so I am very
nice to
very, very happy to have you do this. Be the first one to actually do this. I cannot thank you enough, and I can't, wish you enough for your future, because I think you're a very, very directed.
Thanks so much, Kareem. I really appreciate it. Yeah, well, I need some luck as well, because it feels like I'm just kind of at that stage. And it's still, it still takes time, to get your break in the industry, and that's kind of just right where I'm at.
Talent is something that you look for, and I think YDA has always been good at that, and I think you have the talent to actually go forward, because it was a very courageous film, and there's no other way to explain it. It's like it's a courageous film, and it was a story that you needed to tell, and you told it verbatim, which is actually amazing. And it's
right.
I wish you the best.
Thanks so much. Really great chatting with you. Thanks, Kareem. Yeah.
Thank you. And again, good luck for the future, and I'm sure I'll see you in the next few months.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Kareem. All right. All the best. See you.